Hi everyone, it's Donovan from Serverless Solutions, and today we are wrapping up our series on building secure agentic AI. Originally, I was going to jump into Microsoft Intra and show you how to set that up on your app registration, but in order to do so, I'd have to edit out a lot of sensitive information, and there's already good documentation about setting that up. And you might not even be using Intra in your particular implementation. Suffice it to say, I've created some roles for the app registration we created previously. I've set up a trainer role and a park ranger role. With all that set up on the authorization server, it's time to jump into the code and start inspecting those tokens and checking those roles. The first thing we need to do is update our Intra claims struct to hold those roles that we're going to grab from our token. And if we look at our validate token method, we'll see that we actually extracted the claims as part of our validations method. Wouldn't it be nice if each of our endpoints had access to those claims? That's what we'll set up next. We'll start by grabbing the token data from our OK result. Next, instead of just simply running the rest of the request, we'll take those claims and add them to the extensions on the request. Extensions is just part of our HTTP request object that we're passing through all of our methods, and it allows us to add custom data in addition to what our HTTP request had originally. So we'll take our request, we'll access the extensions, but the mutable reference so that we can actually insert those claims. Now we're getting an error because request isn't mutable. So let's go back to the function signature and ensure that we declare it as mutable. With that complete, let's also create a function to validate roles so that we don't have to write the same code in all of our controllers. This function will accept the parts, extract that extension that we added for those token data claims, as well as a role that we want to match against. We'll go ahead and grab the claims if they exist. Then we'll get the roles from those claims. And if those roles contain what we're looking for, we'll return an OK result. If things don't go as planned, we'll return an error. I'm going to return invalid params and give a nice message to send back to our agent. And now we have a reusable method that we can use simply in our tool calls. So let's go ahead and do that. Here in our Poke tool, I want to make sure that only park rangers can add Pokemon to the park. Now adding that is going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. We're going to check against the park ranger role and raise that error if we get one. Oh, it's complaining that there's no parts. So let's go ahead and define that in the signature, which will get injected in automatically. We'll go ahead and import. I want to do the same thing for catching a Pokemon, but only allow trainers to do that. I'll be super lazy and just copy paste here. And then we'll make sure only trainers can do this. Now my user has been registered as a trainer. So let's start the server and make sure we get what we expect when we interact with our agent. And whoopsie, we made a boo-boo. That's because I used the Axum extension rather than the MCP extension here. So let's go ahead and fix that. With the server running successfully, it's time to kick off the integration with our agent. And now we'll see what I'm allowed to do. We'll start by making sure we can still get all the Pokemon. Great, I can get all the Pokemon. Let's see if I can catch one. We ran the method, it succeeded. Now let's see if we can add a Pokemon to the list. Ruh-roh, I can't add Charizard due to authorization restrictions. This isn't the best user experience. The agent is discovering tools that it's not authorized to use. And although it's very important to do authorization on the tool definition itself, we can go one step further and ensure that our MCP server only serves up tools that the agent can actually execute. So far, listing tools to our agent has been handled by our tool handler macro. If we scroll down in the documentation, we can see the code that the macro actually adds. It has the call tool method and the list tools method. Since we want to implement that list tools method, we'll go ahead and copy these out and get rid of the macro. We'll simply paste them down here and remove the macro. With that done, it's time to get down to business. We'll start with the hash map. We'll map out each of these tools, and we'll return the key that we want to use, along with the tool itself. Finally, we'll collect all that, and fix my syntax error. Next, we'll start our filtered tools list. And I know it's going to be there, so I'm just going to be lazy. And since we added our claim data to extensions, we'll grab the role straight from it. Oh my gosh, come on. Don't put underscores on there. Nobody wants to use those. All right, back to context. We'll get our extensions and we'll get parts. And then we know that that is going to return our parts. And from our parts, we can get our intra claims. And then from our claims, we can get our roles. So now if we get Park Ranger, we'll list the add Pokemon method. And if the user's roles contains trainer, we'll add the catch Pokemon method. We'll return the filtered tools to the calling agent. We'll rerun our MCP server. We'll kick off our integration, and we can now see that only 2 tools are listed. And here in chat, we'll check our tools. We'll open our demo tool, and we'll see that indeed we only have catch Pokemon and get all Pokemons, not the add Pokemon method. Let's make sure we can still use these. Start with the usual, asking what's available. And now we'll go ahead and catch Squirtle. And with that complete, we've added role-based authentication for our tools, as well as the list of tools that we provide to whatever agent we're working with. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this series, and we would love to hear back from you. What are your thoughts on the changes in authorization specifications for MCP? Does this make Agentic AI a little bit more palatable for you in your environment? Let us know what you're excited about, what your successes have been, and what challenges you're facing, and what you'd like to see in our next set of videos. As always, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.